Welcome to a very special bonus edition of the Red Agenda on The Athletic. This has been 30 years in the making, this moment. Liverpool are champions, and to celebrate the title victory, we're offering 40% off the subscription to The Athletic. There's going to be a raft of Liverpool articles going out on the site over the next 7 days, including Jordan Henderson's journey to the title, which Simon Hughes has been devoting quite a bit of time to over the past few months. Michael Cox will be releasing an article on the tactical innovations that have transformed Liverpool. And Raphael Honigstein will take an in-depth look into the mindset of the man who made it all happen, Jurgen Klopp. What a heroic man. Right, to read all that and much, much more, go to theathletic.com/Liverpool pod to sign up. It will cost you less than £3 a month. Let's talk with our Liverpool correspondents who are still feeling that jubilation at the moment. James Pearce and Simon Hughes. James, we'll start with yourself. You've got a little rosette in the background there, which reminds you of 30 years ago. It's been a long wait for yourself as a fan. How does it feel now?
Yeah, it feels incredible. Yeah, very emotional. I think, it's just, I think it's funny because I think we've obviously known for a long time that Liverpool would be finally crowned champions this season, but still the moment when it actually does become a reality is very, very special. And even in the last 15-20 minutes, neighbours knocking on the doors, and I think social distancing appears to have gone out the window in Egbert anyway. I think there's been a fair bit of hugging going on, and some fella telling me he was on his way to Walton Village with a bag full of flares and a crate of beer. So it looks like it's going to be a late one tonight, but yeah, it's just amazing, isn't it? I think after so many kind of false dawns and kind of agonising near misses and years of mediocrity as well along the way, to finally see Liverpool take that final step just means everything.
It was hard to imagine, Simon, how this moment was going to play itself out. We were talking before we started this conversation, and we both opened our doors and windows, and the fireworks going off. You can hear the jubilation behind it. It's a city which is on a massive high at the moment.
Well, I'm in North Liverpool, and James lives in the far leafier south of the city. The North Liverpool's got a bit more of a rugged edge, I would say, although I live in Crosby, which that might not apply in Crosby, but I've got the window open now and you can hear the car horns, blaring, and there's fireworks being set off. I can see bonfires in the distance. It's, it feels like a moment of just enormous relief more than anything else. I mean, on a personal level, I can't remember the last title. I think maybe you've spoken about this before on other podcasts, and I can't remember anything about 1990. So, every day of my sort of life really growing up was envisaging what it would feel like when Liverpool finally got there and won the title. And, I was speaking to a friend on the phone, my best mate, just a few moments ago. And I remember having conversations with him in 1995 about this yearning for Liverpool to get back. That was 25 years ago, so it's incredible. I mean, I know a few people might be saying, well, the circumstances aren't quite what people expected in terms of the pandemic and the way, obviously, you're waiting on Chelsea to beat Manchester City and Liverpool aren't playing. There's not that sort of moment of finality, but there's still a massive, incredible amount of satisfaction. It just feels like, finally we're not having to talk about the last title. It's just happened moments ago. It's a great feeling, not just for the football club. I understand there's Evertonians in the city, but for the city itself, it's a really good moment for the city to finally get past that, because Liverpool as a city hasn't won the title since 1990. People forget that, and it's put Liverpool. Football can put it's such a positive thing at the moment for Liverpool, and it can put Liverpool as a city on the map. Globally, people associate the success with Liverpool as a city. So I'm just so happy for them. Just so happy, really. It's hard to articulate it.
A little swig of champagne there, James. Did you have the champagne on ice? And the moment, did it meet the expectation? Simon was talking there about imagining how it would feel for all that time. Did it actually meet the high that you were expecting?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think it goes without saying that if you could write it yourself, you would want it to happen in a full Anfield with Liverpool winning and being being masters of their own destiny, if you like. But in the circumstances, and when you think that it was only 2 or 3 months ago that we wondered whether Liverpool would be cruelly denied what it had been an absolute procession to the title, and all the self-interest amongst some clubs and the talk about null and void and would the season be curtailed. So it's of course there's a little bit of a it's not probably as kind of iconically special as you would imagine it to be because of the fact that these games are being played behind closed doors, but that is very different from reducing the scale of the achievement. The scale of the achievement is not affected whatsoever. I think as Jurgen Klopp said last week, I think his words were, if you want to put an asterisk next to our name, then fine. He said, because for me, this is the most difficult season ever to win the title with the circumstances. And I think he's got a point. And, I've just seen his interview there when he's reduced to tears on TV and he's dedicating it to, he said, this is for Kenny, this is for Stevie, this is for all of those who have tried over the years. I mean, that the emotion that he's shown there, he's only been at Liverpool for 5 years, but it didn't take him long to realise that this was the Holy Grail. This is what every manager and every player who's joined Liverpool Football Club has been striving for 30 years. And most of them came nowhere near achieving it. And, let's not forget, when you put this achievement in context, this is Manchester City. People were saying, "Is this the greatest club team there's ever been? Are we going to see an absolute era of complete domination from Pep Guardiola's side?" The slug in the guts of missing out so narrowly last season, getting 97 points, just one defeat, and even that was by such a narrow margin at the Etihad, and that clearance off the line from John Stones, and to come back from that and then produce what Liverpool have done this season, to only drop 7 points along the way and to blow everyone out the water, is tribute to what has been created at Liverpool during Klopp's reign.
It's magnificent, isn't it? Simon, this has to be looked at as one of the finest sides of the modern era, doesn't it, in the game? They simply are mouth-watering.
Well, you look at the record of this Liverpool team. I know there's a few more games to go, but they're on course, I think, to set the Premier League record. I mean, I don't get bogged down in those sort of, statistical details sometimes, but I think Liverpool can get 105 points, which, it's still a big ask to go and win the remaining games, particularly with the pressure being off now. But I suppose that would be the next target to some extent. If they get 105 points or anywhere up north of 100, that'd be better than the record that Manchester City set a few years ago under Guardiola. And it's fair to say, as James says, to topple this Manchester City team, it's the Manchester City team a couple of years ago that won the title, in my opinion, was there with some of the, dare I say, the great United teams, and certainly the Arsene Wenger team of 2003 or 4 when they went unbeaten the whole season. So Liverpool now are in that category of teams. I think to win it in this with this just total relentlessness, they've been set a pace from the start of the season. I think I'm right in saying, from the opening game of the season on that Friday against Norwich, they've been top all the way through the season. Not once have they slipped to seconds. Is that right? Am I right in saying that, James?
Yeah.
Which is just incredible. Like, it's incredible. People have just taken it for granted, I think, because Liverpool just set this pace. And yeah, I mean, it's the best Liverpool team that I've ever seen. There's no doubt about it. Just, they play with all the characteristics that I think Liverpool fans can relate to. They've got, skill, determination, spirit, goals in them. Unpredictable at times in terms of, where the goal threat comes from, particularly from the wide areas. Play with great width as well. I know sort of Salah, and you wouldn't say Salah and Mane are operating as wingers, but they're wingers playing as centre forwards, which means just incredible width all the time, and that creates excitement to get you off your seat. You know, you pay to go and watch this team. In the past, I think when Liverpool have gone short, there's players that you would have paid to watch, like Steven Gerrard or Fernando Torres or Luis Suarez or Robbie Fowler. You know, Steve McManaman are put in the same category. But now this is the team. You pay to go and watch this team. You know, it's just been a pleasure to watch them and sort of and to cover this period over the last 5 years. You know, to go from where they started out. You know, I'll just put the tweet out there. You know, linking to the Jurgen Klopp piece that me and James have been working on. They were 10th in the league when they took over. 10th. Now, you know, the English champions, European champions, world champions. Taken 5 years to get there. Just an incredible achievement. I mean, what a team.
So many defining points of the season. Would you both pick out certain areas of the season that made the difference? Because they've slugged it out in different ways. We've talked about this on the Red Agenda, Simon. We'll go to the Villa game in a moment. But there was the Manchester United, the late draw. There was the brilliant performance against Leicester City. There was the win over Manchester City. I mean, there's lots of different ones you could look at. What springs to mind for you, James?
The biggest thing is that ability to win games in so many different ways, because over that barren spell that Liverpool had, that always used to be the criticism that, you know, it was in various times. Sometimes it was Liverpool would raise it when the big teams came along, and then, you know, you think back to, you know, the famous one in the Roy Evans era when, you know, suddenly it looked like they might go on and clinch the title and they lose to Coventry. And there was lots of times, like, you think of some of the silly draws under, you know, Benitez, when, you know, they again, you know, would raise it, you know, would go to Old Trafford and beat Man United and then draw at home to Hull or whatever. And I think that's the biggest thing, the fact that this Liverpool team can be absolutely swashbucklingly brilliant. Like Leicester away, Palace at home the other night was of a similar ilk in terms of just hitting the most remarkable heights in terms of quality, but also just sheer desire. You think of Palace the other night, and, you know, as Klopp said himself afterwards, the sight of 3 or 4 Liverpool players, like a pack of wolves, hounding those Palace players, you know, 89 minutes on the clock, 4-0 up, but still no let up. But there's been lots of other games where Liverpool have been functional rather than fantastic, and they've just ground it out. They've, you know, I think that's been, you know, the evolution of the style under Klopp has been fascinating for me, because I think you think back to his first season and it was thrilling to watch at times, but, you know, it was car crash at other times. When, you know, I think back to the 5-4 win at Norwich, and, you know, him getting his glasses broken amidst the manic celebrations after Lallana scored that goal, and you kind of thought, well, this is brilliant to watch. Like, entertainment wise, you can't knock it, but you don't win titles playing football like this. You just can't. And you know, and sure enough, I think Klopp evolved. You know, I think we've seen Liverpool become a lot more streetwise, a lot more mature. The experience has come in. Just the way in which they control games now. They don't, you know, if they're 1 or 2-0 up, they'll just, you know, take the foot off the gas and just not, you know, they don't chase after games they don't need to. And, you know, that has put them in this position, because it's meant that they have been absolutely relentless. And as a result of, you know, of having so many strings to their bows, you think of, you know, people said, oh, they're so reliant on the front three. Well, you know, this season especially, teams have sat deep and tried to deny the front three space, yet, you know, the 2 fullbacks have wreaked absolute havoc with how, you know, the quality they provide for wide areas. So that's been the key to this Liverpool team. Win games in so many different ways and so many match winners. You know, it's not like you can't double up on Mo Salah, because if you do that, Sadio Mane will hurt you. The same in midfield, the same with the fullbacks, with Van Dijk coming forward. Just, you know, elite quality in all areas, matched with, you know, a first-class professional attitude.
Yeah, they've won it as a team. But if you think back to the signings that were made, is there one that you think made the biggest difference in terms of Liverpool's journey, Simon? So the keeper Alisson, Virgil van Dijk, or would that be a little bit unfair?
I think the 2 of them, really, you know, because it was quite a strange building process, really. Liverpool built from the front. You know, most managers traditionally sort of get your solidity at the back and go from there and put your finishing touches up top. But Jurgen Klopp did it slightly differently. Obviously, couldn't really decide on the goalkeeper. Couldn't sort of get the combinations right at the back. I just think that the starting point is really Van Dijk. I remember obviously the first game when he comes in and makes his debut against Everton. Straight away, it just gave Liverpool an authority. Without him, his signing, I don't think Liverpool get to that Champions League final in the first season. But then clearly, they still weren't quite right. They didn't have the goalkeeper that was befitting of a team that reaches the Champions League final. And being totally honest, so Alisson Becker was another incredible signing. The two of them have sort of pushed Liverpool. I would say they've pushed Liverpool on to become, the team that they are now. To win titles, really, you do need a solid defence and an outstanding goalkeeper. And you only look at Manchester City tonight, don't you? Defensively, I think that's where they've fallen short this season. You lose Vincent Kompany, a player who actually scores them the win. The goal that makes them champions last season. Really against Leicester. You haven't replaced him, and they've been a bit brittle at certain times in the season. So Liverpool have had Van Dijk available all the way through the season. He's been crucial. Of course, Alisson Becker's missed a couple of games. People forget that. Adrian stepped in, and I know people. He got a lot of criticism after the Atletico Madrid game, but I think he has proven himself as a decent deputy, but clearly not at the standard of Alisson. But those two players for me have just made. They've given Liverpool an authority and a bit of grace as well. They're not just. They're probably the classiest players in the team in many ways, aren't they? The two most defensive players in some ways. Usually you associate your clash with your midfielders and your attackers, but they're relentless. It's more at the back. They just brought this level of calm, which hasn't just calmed the team down, but I'd say calmed Anfield down. They've inspired a level of trust that wasn't there before.
Well, they're two with shorter journeys at Liverpool, but if you think of Jordan Henderson, James, he's had a much longer path, and it's not always been happy, has it? He's a Champions League winner and now a Premier League winner with the Reds. Yeah,
I think when you dig a little deeper into the names and the faces who have made this dream a reality, there's so many fascinating backstories, and probably none better than Jordan Henderson. A man who has been, he wasn't just written off initially. It wasn't just like he had a tough first season and then people accepted, actually, do you know what, this fella can play a bit. He had years of people questioning, almost what he was doing at Liverpool. And even I remember even when Klopp came in, and of course when he then went on to sign Van Dijk, there was almost this assumption in some quarters that Van Dijk will now become the captain. That's the kind of natural thing. Henderson's just been keeping it warm for someone else, and there was, I never understood that, because I just thought you only had to look at every manager Jordan Henderson had worked with, whether it was at club or at international level. They've always picked him, and there's a good reason for that, because for a start, he's an unbelievable professional. In terms of having him around the place. The way he leads his life, he's the perfect role model for all other players. But I think sometimes that, because that side of him is so, it's so clear that, and gets talked about a lot. What sometimes gets overlooked is just how good he is actually as a midfielder, and we've seen that whether it's in the holding role, whether he's when he's given the freedom to push a little bit further forward. I'm delighted for him as much as anyone, because when you think of some of the questions that were always posed against him, and now he can turn around and say, well, he's captained Liverpool to a 6th European Cup. He's now been the captain that's brought the Premier League title back to Anfield for the first time in 30 years. So he's a legend. He's an absolute Liverpool bona fide legend. I think he's long since proved that he's an absolute pivotal part of what Klopp's achieved, because the unity and the spirit and that willingness to fight for each other and to go the extra yard, like we saw against Barcelona, like we saw in all the late winners, a lot of that stems from Henderson and the way he is, and the dressing room that he's helped create. He is he is, a very, very, very crucial cog in this winning machine.
You talked about Jurgen changing the direction of the football club. So the perfect man to introduce now is someone who's written the full history of the last 30 years, and that's Oli K, who's interviewed just about, goodness knows, I don't know, 15, 20 people in a brilliant piece on The Athletic, talking about Liverpool's journey in that 30 years. Let's welcome him now. You okay, Oli? How are you feeling?
Yeah, very good, very good. It's been an entertaining, lively evening. Just been watching the scenes on TV with all the ex-players, seeing who can drink most on air, and sensing a bit more professionalism here. It's impressive.
Yeah, it's a bit of a surreal moment, isn't it, Oli, to win it in that fashion? But does it really matter for you? Is it just a case of crossing the line?
Well, I think I think any time, I would imagine Simon and James would have made the same point, and you would have made the same point, but I would imagine any time anybody's imagined Liverpool winning the league again, or Everton winning the league again, if we're really stretching the imagination, or Leeds getting promoted, whatever, they all think Newcastle winning a trophy. You think of the fans, you think of that moment, and that moment hasn't happened because of the circumstances we know. We're all very well aware of. So I think, undoubtedly it's taken probably the shine off the moment in some ways for the fans, and it's a very brave fan probably that would say no, this is perfect. But I mean, it's not perfect, but it doesn't detract from the achievement from a team this season, which it's on course to break every Premier League record that has been broken over the last couple of seasons by Man City. It's on course to break all of those. They've won it with 7 games to spare. It's absolutely unbelievable what they've done this season. And to do it against... And I was watching Man City tonight and thinking, God, they are such a good team. And as Klopp said, to be so far ahead of them, with out of their sight within, with 7 games still to play is an unbelievable achievement. I think Liverpool's 2 seasons have been absolutely extraordinary.
And given the piece you've written, what sense did it give you in terms of the emotional, the mental and the physical ride that Liverpool have been on for 30 years?
Well, that word emotional is exactly what it's been. I mean, it's felt like, when Arsenal had that sort of series of top, where they were finishing top 4, every season, and it was like the same. It was like Groundhog Day with Arsenal. Every season was the same, and then there was that sort of slow stagnation. It hasn't been like that for Liverpool. Liverpool have had real surges up the table. Surge of 25 points upwards one season, 25 points downwards the next. It's been. I mean, look, they've not dropped down to the bottom half. They've not dropped out of the division. They've never finished lower than 8th. But in terms of the mood going to Anfield as well, over that time, you can see. It's almost like, it's either on or off with Liverpool, the mood. There's been times over the last 20 years going there as a reporter where you just know it's felt like the place has been utterly depressed. And then they'd win a game in Europe in midweek and it would just be alive again, the next weekend. And there were really depressed times in the early 90s, 93 under Souness, late 90s. Pre-Houllier and then late Houllier, late Benitez. Certainly the Hodgson time was depressed, but it's had these surges up and down. And I think since Klopp came in, the first 2 years were an improvement, but the last 2 years has just been an incredible surge. And what they've done, I mean, how you keep that quality and that mood around it being so vibrant, I guess that is going to be the big challenge of the next couple of years.
Right, let's take some questions that have been sent into the Red Agenda. We'll start with this, James. Jerry says on Twitter, who's been the most important signing in the last 30 years? That's a biggie, isn't it? Most important signing in 30 years for Liverpool.
I think it has to be Virgil van Dijk. I think just in terms of someone who's come in and transformed the team and taken them to the next level, I think it has to be him. Just because Liverpool were on an upward curve before he came along. Klopp had put his stamp on the club already, but defensively there was a glaring weakness there. They hadn't had a defensive leader really since Jamie Carragher was in his prime. There's so many contenders for that. I mean, I was, when me and Simon were putting together our long read on how Jurgen Klopp has turned Liverpool into champions, it kind of made me realise how probably maybe underappreciated in a way the signing of Sadio Mane is, because I think he was kind of when you look at now at the elite world-class talent Liverpool have got, Mane he was the first one in the door, if you like. And I think without him in 2016, without him coming in and without him lighting the place up that season, if he didn't get Liverpool into the Champions League that year, then Liverpool don't get Mo Salah in 2017. And, the whole narrative after that is different. So I think, and you can go through. I mean, there are so many amazing backstories when you think of, Wijnaldum and Robertson being plucked from relegated teams and now being champions of Europe and champions of England. But, and Alisson, you think of, what an amazing upgrade he was compared to Mignolet or Karius. But it's got to be Van Dijk. In terms of one man, in terms of someone who's made a bigger difference than all the rest, because it's not only his quality, it's also he just makes everyone around him better. Van Dijk, he just oozes, that calmness and composure, and he's elevated Liverpool, I'd say, more than any other player to where they are now.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would argue with that. Simon, you could probably answer this in about half an hour, but try and make it short. This is from Shiram, who says, do FSG get the credit they deserve? Do it nice and succinctly.
It depends whether you think they deserve it, I suppose. I think they do deserve huge amounts of credit for sort of running the club responsibly, which that they have. Liverpool's financial position is very secure. They don't take risks. They deserve huge amounts of credit for going out and getting, the best manager in world football as well. Managing to get him through the door was an enormous coup. But I'm sure Jurgen Klopp will be keen to layer, all the credit across the club over the next couple of days. All the people on the coaching staff, and Mike Gordon at FSG and Michael Edwards. But ultimately, I said this before. I don't think this happens without Jurgen Klopp, being totally honest. The one thing, the FSG big thing is the stand. I think that was a really big thing that they got done, and they've taken their time to get it right, and they still will get things wrong. I'm sure people get frustrated with them from time to time, but fundamentally they are good owners. The good foreign owners who treated the club with a great deal of financial care, I'd say, and I can understand why they do get criticism, but they've. They ultimately, they're the owners that have, whose names will be attached to Liverpool breaking a 30-year Hughes. So they must be doing something right.
Jonesy and Bootle says for all three of you quite quickly, is this just the start of many league title wins? Oli?
I don't think it's going to be another 30 years or another 10 years before Liverpool win it again, because I think they're in really good shape right now. But I don't think it's going to be possible to do what Liverpool did in the 70s and 80s. I don't think that's going to be possible. I don't think it's going to be possible to repeat what Manchester United did in the 90s and 2000s. I just don't see it being possible really to exert that level of dominance when there are so many kind of, Manchester City's wealth and resources and the coach they've got and the players they've got, they're not going to be far away next season. And the next, 2 or 3 seasons, they've got signings they need to make. They need to strengthen in defence. But I think to get one title is very difficult in this league, particularly at the moment. And City had to fight so hard to win that second title. Liverpool are going to have to fight so hard to win a second title. Maybe Manchester United or Chelsea or could make a huge investment and a huge surge next season. But it looks like it's City and Liverpool. But I think it's I would say Liverpool are in a period now, the next 2 or 3 years, where they look really, really well set. And then beyond that, they'll need to rebuild again, because they've got a lot of players in the same age bracket. It's not an old team, but it's a team with a lot of players who are at their peak now, sort of 27, 28, 29. So they're going to have to, rebuild while trying to exert that dominance. And that's what Ferguson did in the 90s. That's what, Paisley, Shankly and then Paisley did, through the 70s and into the 80s. And that's what you have to do. And it's what really no team has managed to do, particularly over the last decade. City have won 4 titles now, 4 Premier League titles. But if you'd said back in 2012 when they were that first one, you'd have said they are equipped now to really, really dominate. And it's easier said than done. I think City have done it to a large degree, but it's easier said than done, because there will always be other good teams around. It's not like Italy, France, Germany, where you've seen teams win 7, 8, 9 titles in a row.
James, will give you the final word on this one.
I see more titles coming along, but I think I agree with Oli that it'll be more difficult next season. I don't think it's realistic to think that Liverpool will run away with it in the same manner as this time around. I think they'll be the ones with the target on their backs next season. There'll be a lot of clubs this summer desperately trying to do business to be able to close the gap and to be able to compete with them. But when you look at the age of this Liverpool team, it's still not a team for me that has reached its peak. And you look at, especially you think of the Palace game the other night and the young players coming off the bench and making an impression. It's no wonder that Jurgen Klopp, despite the fears that he might take a sabbatical in 2022, no surprise really that he weighed it all up and went, you know what, I fancy hanging around here, because he wants to create a golden era. He's landed the 2 biggest prizes you could possibly get your hands on in the European Cup and the Premier League, but he wants to do it again and again and again. And I think everything is in place at Liverpool for him to do that.
Some brilliant articles on The Athletic right now, including Oli's mammoth piece about that 30-year journey to this title. I see Oli celebrating with a fine wine tonight, maybe James with a Peroni, and Simon will probably be lost in a haze on the streets of Bootle somewhere, or maybe Crosby. I don't know where he's going to end up. If you see him, send him home. Guys, thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, Steve.
That was the Red Agenda. And of course, don't forget, there'll be plenty more reaction in the coming days on theathletic.com.